will tell you mode of communications include radio or other form of using even horn, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I think Leonard Mambo Mbotela was one of the celebrated media personalities with high integrity. So, Speaker, it's not to celebrate his life that with the advent of brown envelope journalism, Leonard Mambo Mbotela stood against intimidation and blackmail and resisted any form of brown envelope journalism that has engulfed the country. So, Speaker, another thing, secondly, Mr. Speaker, as a country, we must learn to celebrate and honor our heroes. It is sad that Leonard Mambo Mbotela, Mr. Speaker, was interred or buried at Langata Cemetery. Mr. Speaker, somebody would say in death all of us are equal, but I was proposing that we must have a hero's corner. When you go to Zimbabwe, Harare, Mr. Speaker, heroes of the nation have been designated where they can be buried, not because they are more better or because of class in death, but, Mr. Speaker, is to allow the generations that will come after to learn, to have an heritage where they can go and learn and know who these personalities are. Mr. Speaker, and therefore I'm proposing, and I hope the Ministry of, Sports, Youth, that is in charge, and even Nairobi City County, should even designate land where the national heroes should be buried and ensure, Mr. Speaker, because you remember Langata Cemetery, at some point it had been said it had been overflowed or they were no longer space, Mr. Speaker. So I want to propose that I hope in future we should have a hero's corner where people of integrity, Mr. Speaker, people who have served this nation with distinction that have been celebrated can be buried, Mr. Speaker. And I remember before the advent of devolution, Mr. Speaker, sir, there was a proposal to relocate Langata Cemetery to Mavoko, but we know what happened because the Makaburi or cemetery scandal that befell the Nairobi City County and then through Ministry of Local Government. But this is the challenge. I hope the Nairobi City County has a foresight to even do that, Mr. Speaker. But I don't think they have foresight. If they can take a dirt before electricity house, then that is another story for another day. So, Speaker, the second thing is that we should honor state burial with all state honors, Mr. Speaker, such heroes, where we have full recognition through state burial, Mr. Speaker, because this somebody who said, Je Uniungwana, Leonard Mambo Mbotela would have a chance, second in life, would ask Je Uniungwana for most things that is happening in this country: corruption, lethargy, poor governance, Mr. Speaker, poverty, lack of water, Mr. Speaker. Many Kenyans are going without food, not only even in areas that traditionally would be even here in Nairobi, like Mukuru, Kwanjenga, Kibra, and many other. And he would ask us as leaders, Je Uniungwana. And we would be ashamed of it, Mr. Speaker, because it doesn't bring the goodness of what, and that Je Uniungwana will resonate very well with many people, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, number 4 is that under the National Heroes Council, we should consider, I would have expected the brand new chairman of lands, Senator Faki, to say would propose in Nairobi, Mombasa City County, a street to be named again, after Mambo Mbotela in Mombasa. But also we want to urge the government to name at least 1 or 2 streets in Nairobi, Mr. Speaker, and other cities in the country to celebrate. Because sometimes we have names that even do not belong to us, that do not belong, Mr. Speaker, to the local people or local leadership, Mr. Speaker. So I want to ask, with a lot of respect, the government and even the county government to seize the moment and even name, Mr. Speaker, one of the streets after Mambo Mbotela Street, Mr. Speaker. And secondly, even the Kenya Institute of Mass Communication here, Mr. Speaker, in Nairobi, we should name it after Leonard Mambo Mbotela. We have branches of mass communication so that the young men and women who go and study journalism, Mr. Speaker, can go and learn how to be a good journalist. So that we don't have journalism that inside, Mr. Speaker, I'm very disappointed that every time I wake up and you see the national headlines of respectable newspapers inciting the nation or inciting Kenyans against the government of the day, Mr. Speaker, on several occasions. Say that you wonder what is the editorial policy of some of these media groups, Mr. Speaker. They put funny things, Mr. Speaker. One of them is Nairobian, Mr. Speaker. They are embarrassing members of long-standing, like my brother from Turkana and many other members, Mr. Speaker. I am asking myself, what is the editorial policy, Mr. Speaker, before publishing a screaming headline? Mr. Speaker, even yesterday they were saying that the government has moved payment in the nation to M-Pesa. But when the Ministry of Labor give the correct position, it was not there, Mr. Speaker. Why is it that, and this, I think Mambo Mbotela must be turning in his grave. Because the way media and editorial policy that we have must be one of the sensational, Mr. Speaker. That I read the headlines, you read the headline and the story. The headline says something different. You go to the story, it says something different, Mr. Speaker. Even in the reporting of the radio and news anchor, Mr. Speaker. I don't know whether, is it, Mr. Speaker, is it Kenyans like negative news? Say that all media houses have decided to just give out negative. You watch news, Mr. Speaker, from item number 1 to number 10 is only negative news. Somebody has been killed. Government people have demonstrated against. There is somebody whose wife has been murdered somewhere, Mr. Speaker. There is a church in Bomet called Bethel that is beating worshippers. There is somebody who is running away without clothes in Indian auction. And that is what we have glorified, Mr. Speaker. We must agree that in the spirit of protecting the independence of media, under Article 34 and 35, they must also be responsible. And that is why, Mr. Speaker, we are hesitant in regulating the media, because we believe they should have self-regulations, Mr. Speaker. I know of colleagues who have taken even media to court over misinformation, misrepresentation of facts, Mr. Speaker. And it is not hard. If you have to report anything, Mr. Speaker, and I want to ask media, we respect, we celebrate them. They are a medium of communication. They communicate to the people. Mr. Speaker, as the proceedings on Kony, it is media that we rely on to communicate through national televisions or through local dialects, Mr. Speaker, so that we can see how the communication is being done. We must agree as a country, and I want to call upon the editors. And even, Mr. Speaker, you saw yesterday on many occasions, even in interviews, somebody is clearing misinformation, and the journalists are not seek for evidence to that effect, Mr. Speaker. So we must, I don't think in the spirit of Mambo Mbotela, envisage a media that can be used as a tool of incitement. He envisaged a media that could rely, accurate, verified, most importantly, and protecting the integrity of media in the country, Mr. Speaker. And I know we are not saying people should not criticize parliament or judiciary or any other sector, Mr. Speaker. We agree they have a role to play. But we must, as a country, ensure that we report, media reports, accurate, verified, and information with integrity, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, in the celebration of life of Mambo Mbotela, we celebrate. Now, we must do things that when Mambo Mbotela says, "Je ni u ni ungwana," we must carry ourselves as leaders with dignity, with respect, and we must build the nation. I think that was the clarion call of the late Mambo Mbotela, Mr. Speaker. I want to call upon national heroes to continue to award Mambo Mbotela posthumously, Mr. Speaker, with the highest honors, so that many young journalists that are with us at the moment can aspire to be at the level of Mambo Mbotela, Mr. Speaker. With those very many remarks, as I second, Mr. Speaker, is to wish the family of Mambo Mbotela the grace that surpasses human understanding, so that as they mourn one of their father, the husband, the grandfather, they also have a hope that the country continue to celebrate the great strides and remarks and achievement in the media industry. With those many remarks, I second, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Fosiaya, we are waiting for you to take your seat. may take your seat, Senator. Now, honorable senators, I will now propose the question. That are aware that the late Leonard Mambo Mbotela, a renowned media personality,